Keith Lewis, the former state director for California and New York for Miss USA and Miss Teen USA, posted on his Facebook page on October 18, 2020, a screenshot of Donald Trump's phone number, which has been blurred with the caption, "I have Donald Trump's mobile number," followed by a lengthy diatribe in which he recounts how it was like also working with Donald Trump for 9 years. But before I continue, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so, and click the bell icon below to get instant notification for the next video. Help me reach 3,000 subscribers by the end of the month so I can start giving away prizes. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe! As most pageant fans would know, Donald Trump used to own the Miss Universe organization, which ran the Miss Teen USA, Miss USA, and Miss Universe pageants for nearly 20 years. But he ended up selling the organization in September 2015, a few months after he declared his run for the US presidency. Keith Lewis's company, K2 Productions, took over the Miss California USA franchise in 2004 and held on to it until 2013. Under Lewis's leadership, California became the top placing state at Miss USA, growing the entry numbers to the largest state pageant in the history of Miss USA and doing the first live television airing in over 10 years. In the beginning, K2 Productions was directed by former Miss Teen USA 1995 Keely Sue Sanders and Lewis himself. K2 Productions was later directed by Lewis and briefly co-produced by Miss USA 1995 Shayna Mogler. K2 had quite a number of controversies during its 9 years producing the pageant. In 2009, Carrie Prejean was forced to resign after placing first runner-up at Miss USA 2009 after a controversy developed regarding her answer she gave to her final interview question at the national pageant. You know, when she replied that same-sex marriage should be between a man and a woman. Pageant organizers claimed she was fired due to contractual violations. Anyway, here's what Keith Lewis wrote. In the first paragraph, he expresses his hatred for the current political situation in the country and calls for a remedy. I quote, "I hate politics. It is a broken system that needs to be completely overhauled in order for we the people to retake our rightful place in government. But I love my country, my neighbors, and the ideals that I believe we all share: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The framers, meaning the authors of the U.S. Constitution, created something no other country has duplicated. I believe it is why we have been the most powerful nation on earth and the envy of the world. That is, until now." End of quote. So basically, Keith Lewis believes that in the 4 years that Trump has been president, the United States has become less powerful and less envied by the world. Well, of course, this is strictly his opinion that we have to respect, although I don't necessarily agree with it myself, being a Trump supporter. In the beginning of the second paragraph, he writes, quote, "I worked with Donald Trump for 9 years. The only person he was ever concerned with was himself. One of those 9 years, he impacted my life and my cell phone on a regular basis. I lived firsthand in the reality TV world he creates, even when the camera is not filming." End of quote. I heard this phrase so many times, that Trump is only concerned about himself, or that Trump only cares about himself, which is expressed for the most part by individuals who knew him or who worked with him. I am assuming that these individuals hated Trump either because of the brash manner that he treated them, or that he thought that they were not competent in their profession. But I could be wrong. Then Lewis says, "He thrived on dissension, chaos, and discord. He attacked those weaker and maligned subordinates. My ordeal involved countless conversations and personal meetings. Fortunately, I was seldom the target of his anger, but I watched as he butchered those around me. I was complacent. I kept my mouth shut so that I would not get attacked as well. I regret that." So basically what Lewis is trying to say is that he had always known that Trump mistreated his employees for whatever reason, and that Trump caused trouble in the workplace, And for that, Lewis feels guilty for not standing up to Trump and to defend the employees. Lewis feared that if he had not confronted Trump, then he himself would also have been attacked mercilessly by Trump. Lewis continues by saying, "And I regret not speaking out before the last election. I did not think he would win. He did not think he would win. No one who worked for him at the time thought he would win. But he did. He won because the people who voted for him felt just like me, that the system is broken, and they figured it was time to try a different approach." That makes sense. After all, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. But America did not know what I knew, and that is he would never be the guy to fix it because he does not have the inclination or the skill set to do it. Okay, so Lewis, just like the Democrats, the media, Hollywood, and Hillary Clinton, had falsely assumed that Trump would not win the presidency. They were probably dwelling in this big echo chamber where everyone believed the same thing without even thinking that they could all be wrong. They underestimated Trump's popularity with the common people, especially the working class, who had been following Trump since his reality TV days. They knew about his failed marriages, they knew about his shady business dealings, they knew about his brash personality, but they also knew that he was not a politician, that he has always expressed his love for America in countless interviews, that they were tired of established career politicians who have done little to better the lives of Americans, and that his brash personality is exactly what is required in a leader to be able to stand up to China and globalist agencies. This was the different approach that Lewis probably and reluctantly was referring to. Keith Lewis continues, "I could try and convince people that Biden is the best candidate, but sometimes in politics, like relationships, it is enough to be the right one for right now. I know some will call me stupid, seduced by the fake media, or fooled by propaganda, or perhaps worse, but I do not care. I want the same things they do, and I will fight to see us get them. Us, not me, not my party, not part of America." So Lewis apparently thinks it was no longer important what others might think of his perception of Trump or former Vice President Joe Biden, and that what matters the most to him is to get the same things that other people have. But Lewis did not specify what these same things are, but I can assume that they refer to jobs, affordable healthcare, affordable education, equal rights, anti-discrimination laws, security, law and order, etc. Ironically, these are exactly the same things that the Trump administration has been fighting for since he got elected president in 2016. So if Lewis feels that he is not getting the same things that others are getting, then he can help solve this problem by voting. Then lastly, he says, "Before the attacks, though, you should know a few things. This past year, I successfully managed 8 political campaigns and 6 were Republican. I'm not being paid to write this, and even saying these things might open me up to potential liability, but I don't care. My country is too important. We're all too important, and this time I'm not going to be silent." Good for him for being civic-minded and for practicing the First Amendment. Every American should actually do the same. But I couldn't help but wonder about Lewis's political affiliation. Note that out of 8 political campaigns that he managed, 6 were Republican, which makes me wonder if he himself is a registered Republican who happens not to support Trump, although I doubt this very much. In the same thread, we also see Miss USA 2005 Chelsea Cooley chiming in by saying,
"Keith, I hesitate to comment on your post. I just remember your relationship with Mr. Trump so differently. For years, you did meet with him in an attempt to convince him to fire Paula Sugar because you wanted to run the Miss Universe organization. I know this because you made it very well known to both myself and Arthur Thomas Dunn. So much so for years, Mr. Trump himself would ask me on many occasions how I thought Paula was doing as the president of MUO, to which I would assure him that he needed to keep her in that position because she was doing a wonderful job. If you now say you regret not speaking up, then why were you jockeying so hard back then to not only take over big number state pageants like California and New York, but to become the president of a company he was the co-owner of? I mean no disrespect in my comment. I want to speak the truth in love. I just think that if you're going to speak the truth, the whole truth needs to be stated.
We can conclude from Chelsea's post that Keith Lewis had wanted to replace Paula Sugart as president of the Miss Universe organization, and that Chelsea is astonished that Lewis would be critical of Trump when he himself wanted to be president of MUO, which Lewis denied as stated in this post. I did
Think it needed different leadership? If I remember correctly, both you and AT, meaning Arthur Thomas Dunn, said that as well. I also had that question about Paula, and you can confirm with Mackenzie Davis.
Another former MUO employee, Eric DeSando, tells Chelsea Cooley that Paula Sugart is a terrible leader and has no people skills, and that she has driven that brand into the ground. DeSando also backed up Lewis's statement as well. Not true. Keith did not want to run it. Keith wanted it to grow instead of recede, and he was convinced that the leadership was leading it in the wrong direction. And he was 100% right. The only reason Paula stayed president was Trump could bully her as she had no spine. Lewis is certainly not the only former Trump employee who hates their old boss. Perhaps the most prominent Trump hater who was a beauty queen was former Miss Universe 1996 from Venezuela, Alicia Machado, whom Trump had called Miss Piggy and Miss Housekeeping when she had gained weight during her reign. When Alicia became a U.S. citizen, she registered as a Democrat and started campaigning for Hillary Clinton and trashing Trump wherever she went. Shayna Monin, who represented Pennsylvania in Miss USA 2012, sued the Miss Universe organization for fraud, accusing them of rigging the results of the pageant. After Trump countersued her, she was forced to pay $5 million in damages, which caused her to drop the charges and resent Trump for the rest of her life. 4 years ago this month, Inside Edition uploaded a video to YouTube entitled Watch Former Beauty Queens Who Worked with Trump Have Heated Election Debate. 17 contestants of Miss USA, Miss Teen USA, and Miss Universe were divided over where their loyalties lay on Election Day in 2016. 6 of the women were pro-Trump, 9 were against, and 2 were still undecided. The 9 women who were against Trump included Miss Utah USA 2007 Heather Anderson, who said that she felt degraded when Trump lined up the girls as if it were a cattle call. Logan West, Miss Teen USA 2012, alleged that Trump had done something inappropriate, claiming that she saw it but refused to talk about it. And Shantae Hinton, Miss USA 2002, said that she felt slighted by Trump when she said that he did not even know who she was. And do you remember Scott Grossman, the choreographer for Miss Teen USA, Miss USA, and Miss Universe for over 20 years? Well, he also hates Trump. When Maureen Atwell posted on her Facebook page dated October 17 that Biden hasn't done anything in the 47 years he has been in political office,
For this country to tear it apart and ever, and the only reason Donald Trump donates his taxes check to businesses so he can get the write-off because he only paid $750 tax when he got into office. He didn't pay anything before. You really need to do the research because you know what he is, not the president for our nation trust.
I was curious to find out the reason behind Scott's hatred towards Trump, so I asked a former state director who knew Scott. This state director, who will not be named, told me that Scott always butted heads with Donald Trump, to the point that Trump himself lost respect for Scott. Scott would always imply that Trump's pageants wouldn't be what they are without him, which triggered Trump, who consequently told Scott, "You're fired." Now you know why Scott bears a perpetual grudge against Trump. So there you have it, former disgruntled employees of Donald Trump who hate him and who surely will not vote for him during the US presidential elections on November 3rd. I sort of understand how they feel about Trump because if I had been employed by Trump and treated the same cruel way, I probably would hate him too.